All right, so I am Dave Snyder. I'm from CopyPress. Again, who am I? CEO of CopyPress. I'm a reformed spammer, maybe. We don't know. So I actually started my career. I have a very important degree from FSU. It's creative writing with an emphasis in poetry. That was a bad decision, it turns out. So I became a middle school teacher after my music career didn't work out because I play music. So imagine you're a 12-year-old and you walk into this on the first day of school. And then I got tired of being poor and I tricked my way into a SEO job. I was really good at it. And so that's the spammer days. There's a guy coming up later named Lauren Baker. Me and him started an agency together. And then my career went from there. I'm a dad. I have 3 terrible boys at home. I tell people every night at my house is like a prison movie. It's just naked dudes beating each other up constantly. And the thing that I've really gotten into the last 24 months is fishing. I live in Tampa, so the only reason I'm here is proximity, not because I'm actually a knowledge expert. It only took me 20 minutes to get here. If you don't know what CopyPress is, we're a content marketing platform. We connect buyers and creatives with each other, whether it's writers, infographic creators, publishers. Our role in that process is we've developed software to allow for the entire workflow to work easily, maximizing how much writers can make working with us because they don't have to deal with communicating with customers. How many writers do I have here? How many of you guys have worked for Text Broker before? None. Good. They suck. Oh, okay, a couple of you have. But right, if you go into a platform like that, you're talking directly to the customer, right? And it's like what value you're bringing me, and you're paying me a penny a word. CopyPress, again, built solutions to help both sides. We specialize in large scale and specialty stuff. So if you're a big company that needs 1,000 pieces of content a month that sound exactly the same but have to come from 20 different people, that's what we do, right? All right, so we're going to talk about the economics of content. I don't know what was in the thing that I was going to talk about. It was very general. But because of the makeup of this audience, 50% of you are buying content, 50% of you are creating content. I want to talk about a subject that both of you get angry about at different times. So you guys will all hate me by the time we're done. But we're going to talk about the economics of content because there's not a lot of communication happening between the two parties. Right? There's just one party being like, I want more, and the other party's being like, I want to pay less. And nobody's really understanding why each party needs what they need. So again, it's a touchy subject because people make it a little bit of a black and white issue, okay? The idea of if I say I'm willing to pay a writer 5 cents for something, I am saying that there's not writers worthy of making $5 for something. No, those two realities can coexist on this universe, okay? Like I can think people are worth a certain amount if they're worth a certain amount. And we have this in our office at CopyPress. Skilled creatives aren't cheap and cheap creatives aren't skilled. And we kind of go by that mantra. Doesn't mean that we don't offer pay rates that I think are still too low, right? What it does mean is that I think our job as our role in this industry is to get the pay rates higher, also increasing quality as we go, okay? Because, again, not every writer is created the same, okay? Not every writer is writing the next great American novel, and that's okay to say. That's not me putting you down, because I think there are amazing creatives that deserve it. Again, not everybody's cut from the same cloth, okay? You cannot tell me the guy writing 6,000-word profiles for Vanity Fair is the same as a 20-year-old student that just came out with a creative writing degree that just wants some bylines and some cash. Those two people are different. Those two people deserve to be compensated differently based on their skills, their experiences, and different things we're going to talk about. And this is something that happened recently. And so we're going to start off with buyers. Because I want creatives to understand part of the issue lies in the people buying your content and to kind of show you the mentality of what's happening. And we're going to look at a Twitter exchange that happened recently between some people in the SEO space that I think signifies, one, the buyers buying from text broker that are like, you're a writer, you're a cog, just create shitty content for me, right? And give it to me. But then you'll see there's hope at the end of the tunnel with some of what's happening also. So this guy, Ross Hudgens, who's really smart guy, knows what he's doing, puts out some good videos. And in the video, he talks about creating a 600-word blog post for $1,000 to $2,500 a piece, okay? So this guy, I'm not a fan of the Nelly guy as we go through, so we'll talk, this jackass responds like with condescending, ha, 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 right? So that's the beginning of the thread. Ross comes back and is like, I appreciate your feedback, but look, all you took away from this was a 600-word piece of content, right? He's going back a few slides ago and saying, well, 600-word piece of content is a 600-word piece of content. There's no way I'm paying $2,000 for that. But Ross says, no. What if I'm putting in custom photography? Anybody here, amateurish photographer or ever bought photography rights? That shit's expensive, man. You're not selling, especially if you're selling the original of your image. Or if you're doing a survey and collecting data. He's like, you're just taking the 600 words thing and saying, I'm an idiot for spending this amount of money. But there's no context. And then another really good SEO, Eric Covino's like, yeah, man, you bring in design. So if you're doing like an ebook or an interactive piece of content or this concept now that everybody's talking about 10x content, right? You bring in all these elements. It could be more than $2,500. Makes no difference. $2,000's too much. Small businesses can't afford it. For a marketing campaign for a small business, $10,000 a month, that's crazy. Again, even in his mind, there's no variation of small business, right? I consider CopyPress a small business. We'll do $5 million this year. Like, yes, that's more than the guy that's making $150K a year. But again, variations in everything. There is no black and white in this topic. But a lot of buyers are approaching it like it's completely black and white. No. 600 words. I pay you a penny a word. It's $6. Give it to me. And so what I took a ton of hope for, and actually what I sent those guys to the thread was that. I just sent the image. I was like, put that in the thread because I was like, you're getting what you pay for, guy. That's your mentality, and I feel bad for the writers he has to work with. But the hope at the end of the tunnel is you got two really great SEOs that are on the side of paying more to writers. And that made my heart like, yeah, we're almost there, because that's our constant battle when we're doing negotiations is, the writers always look at us, they're like, pay us more. I'm like, I would love to, right? But I have to negotiate on the behalf of both sides. So this is an economic study that we did, I think 2 years ago. So some of the data is going to be a little aged, but we're just looking at the raw numbers. This is how people feel, okay? Percent of content marketing towards content creation, okay? The largest piece on there is 25 to 50%. It's a super interesting concept because it means when they're creating a content marketing budget, they're only spending 25 to 50% of it on actual content, right? So where's the rest of the money going? Strategy, like consultants maybe, not actual content. Also means that they value that piece more than the content creation. Average client marketing spend, $5,000 to $20,000 a year. Okay, so again, this has all kinds of customers mixed into it. But I always talk to people. I'm like, all right, when you're looking at your content spend, you come to me, you're like, I have $1,000 a month max to do this. What would you pay for somebody to do this internally, right? How are those economics parallel if you're spending $5,000 a year? Like, you can't pay a human body to sit in your office for that amount of money. Toughest obstacles in creating content for clients. Number one was understanding and matching client expectations. That is another money thing. I can't tell you how many times we work with a customer where they're like, our process is actually, you start with a questionnaire. We build style guides. We're the only platform I know that builds style guides based on individual client questionnaires. But we still get to a point sometimes where we get to a first product and they're like, no, I want this or that. Scope creep, right? Scope creep means I said this was going to be, I was going to charge you X, now you want Y, I've got to charge you Z. And that's what a lot of writers feel. I'm sure every writer in here has worked with a customer where you get halfway into a project and you're like, this is not what you told me we were going to do. And so it's a huge obstacle for writers in terms of managing that scope creep and figuring out, I'm guessing the majority of us just eat it, just end up giving away our time and effort regardless of the fact that we're worth more. Average amount paid for an outsourced article for copy. Interesting thing on this graph to me is the 1 penny a word is the same as the $1 a word. And that gives me hope as well, because that means the 1 penny a word is shrinking and the $1 a word is growing. But, there are a lot of people willing, at least they say they're willing to pay a premium. I don't really see these numbers matching up with what I see in the marketplace sometimes. But, again, people are moving towards that space. The amount of earnings from freelancing in 2015, this is an interesting one too. So buyers, a majority of the people creating your content do not do this full time, okay? Majority of the people writing your content, huge majority are doing this on their off time. They're work-at-home moms, right, who don't consider this a full-time profession. And so they're supplementing their income. At the same time, for writers, you need to try to get yourself to the right side of this graph. And we're going to talk about how you do that. How you do that is not writing full-time for a company like CopyPress or the Hoth, right? It's not because we don't pay well. It's because you need to do certain things in your career to get past being a person on a platform. And then this is the best part of the whole survey. Which one would improve your satisfaction with work? More money, right? That would improve everybody's satisfaction with work more. Here is another reality of this situation for buyers, though, and we face this. So we have editors in our system, and at one point, editors were doing a bad job. And so my brilliant idea was like, double their pay. So then what happened was we had shitty editors making twice as much money as they did. And so, going back to that original graph, you can't take bad creatives and throw money at them and then they sprout into amazing artists, right? No, you pay good people fair wages and then you just get rid of the garbage. All right, so we're going to talk about how creatives can make more money, right? This is, pretty much a guaranteed path that you'll make more money if you do X, Y, Z. You're going to have to hustle and bust your ass and think outside of your box and get a little bit uncomfortable. But, if you want to make money, that's how things go, All right, so first step. I think somebody talked yesterday about contributing other places. I wasn't here, so I just heard secondhand. Stop writing for free. Now, there's some caveats for this, but the ecosystem of the internet for the last 6 years has exploited writers for free work, okay? Now the HuffPo, after building an empire and selling it, has told you they can give a fuck about you and to get out. So are you going to learn from this, or are you going to continue to do the same shit? Now, caveat, we're going to talk about niches and why they're important. If there's an opportunity in a niche that's going to get you a byline that is ultra valuable for your portfolio, you need to put a dollar amount on that and be like, all right, this is worth my time. But the idea that you're going to wholesale just give your name and your work away for free to build a portfolio is a fallacy built by internet companies that are making money off your work, okay? You do not need to do that. And so this was this was all the companies. Also, fallacy built by SEO spammers like me that once you started writing for those companies would then pay you to put stuff on those sites. And that's the only way you can make the money, right? So you start writing on HuffPo. Now the only way you can get paid for that is by doing a link or doing this or doing that for somebody. And then all the websites get mad at you for wanting to make some money off of what you're doing. All right, so get niche. Every young writer I talk to, I say, stop being the every person writer. It's fine if you're a good copywriter and you're in the copy press system to write about everything. But in your personal life and your portfolio, you need to figure out what is your passion, and you need to create a blog today. How many of you that describe yourselves as writers do not currently have a blog that you actively write on constantly? You leave today and you start the goddamn blog. Okay? No excuse. If this is what you want to do, you have to do that. Okay? Because you're owning your name. You're creating your name. You will be able to charge money as soon as this happens. So this guy here is Robert Schrader. We do a lot of stuff in the travel space. Robert Schrader writes on Esquire, writes on a lot of big publications, has his own site. I can't go to Robert Schrader and say, hey, I'll pay you 7 cents a word. No. 35 cents, 50 cents a word has to happen. Why? Because he's got other shit going on and he makes everybody pay him. And he's created a name and he makes his own money on his own site. Okay? So figure out what you love. What's your passion? It doesn't matter what it is. And furthermore, you'll notice as you get into that thing, ancillary opportunities will come up as well. Things that are adjacent to your vertical, people will approach you. But again, if you're passionate about something, your writing's going to show that you're passionate about that thing. The quality is going to be there. You'll be able to create a name for yourself in that space. And that will drive your price up for the work that you're doing. You need to get non-writing skills, and you need to beef them up. Okay, so this is a picture from a piece we did with. We did a campaign for Home Depot, and Home Depot's a pain in the ass to work with. And what we did was we did a couple of projects. I'm going to show you another one in a second. But I went out and found DIY bloggers, and I said, hey, we're going to pay you to do DIY projects, actually make the stuff, write about it, and I'm going to send a photographer out to take pictures of it. And this was some of the material that came out of it, right? So this person's not just a writer, they're a crafts person as well. And so I'm not telling you to go out and get good at just DIY stuff, but hey, photography has become mind-numbingly simple in a lot of ways. I'm not talking down to photographers that are in here, but technology has made it to where my cell phone is very good comparative to a 35 millimeter from 20 years ago. You need to beef up your non-writing skills, whether that includes just getting better at technology like WordPress, learning how to do design with Photoshop or Illustrator, learning how to take pictures, learning skills within your vertical, right? So if you're going to be writing about outdoor stuff, you should become a niche. Maybe your niche is cooking for camping. What is that noise?
There's my stomach. Okay.
I don't know what's happening next door. It sounds like it's a good time.
Somebody's beefing.
Yeah, they're beefing something. So yeah, beef up your non-writing skills. You're going to be able to charge for a premium for the work that you do outside of the writing. Also, it's just going to give you better content. Again, better content. Like, would you rather read an article, 10 best tips for creating, this was a mailbox thing, like how to create festive mailboxes, 10 best tips for creating mailboxes, or 10 mailboxes we created out of this stuff? No, the stuff one. You want to see, right? Like, I want to see what happened. Next thing, do collabos, okay? So this was also a piece for Home Depot. We hired a carpenter to actually build a rolling cart and document the entire process, had a photographer there. If you're a writer in your niche, find people that are good at stuff that you might not be good at. Say, hey, let's team up together and start to put together some content and put together something that we can actually sell to people, right? It's okay to write for free for yourself, by the way. That's the whole thing with a blog. So if you're collabing with somebody and you're doing this huge piece of content that's taking 40 hours of your time, that's good to put on your site, not good to put on Huffington Post, right? Because even if you don't have a way to monetize your site today, the monetization will come when your price increases for what you're able to charge to customers in your market. And this is the way to build a portfolio. See, again, the lie of the internet that you need to write for free to get a portfolio. No. Create great content and put it on your site, okay? All right, so we're going to talk to buyers now about your role in this process, okay? First thing, like when we go back to that argument that they were having on Twitter, not once did they talk about, or at least the guy saying, $2,000, that's crazy. Like, what's it for? What industry is it in, right? If you're in the legal space and you're writing about a legal topic, you might have to have a lawyer write that, a paralegal. You're going to have legal confirm it. Like, that's going to get expensive real fast, okay? If you're writing for a company that does stuff in the stock space, it's going to get expensive real fast. But as marketers, the approach that we take, we're just like, well, I need to write 30 articles, so, this amount of money, I'm going to pay it. No. Everything starts with KPIs. What the hell are you doing with this content? Right? Just throwing content out there is not going to really do anything. What are we trying to drive? How are we trying to drive it? So this is it's like a deck, an interactive deck that we built for a company called DocSend. And, it's a basic deck. I think it cost them $5,000 for us to do it, writing, design, right? This is the other thing CopyPress is good at, is where we take multiple elements and throw them into one thing so we can do white papers, ebooks, things like that. But this got on TechCrunch. I think they ended up getting like 500,000 visitors, and it essentially made their 2015, their entire 2015 in terms of biz dev. That investment. So this is the investment where that guy's like, that's ridiculous. Why would you pay that much? Made an entire company's marketing year. Now, do not take this away of like, you'll hit a home run every time you create one of these. Like, no. This is a case study because it worked. I have lots of stuff that hasn't worked, so we can always go to those too. But it's an example of, if you know your KPIs and you know what you're measuring and how much value there is, it's easy to assign a dollar amount, just like when you go spend money on AdWords. You got to look at the bigger picture if you're a buyer, right? Do you want to be Lou Ferrigno or do you want to be this guy, right? Right? So like the internet used to run off Lou Ferrigno, just shitty content, like it's just all over the place, and the more I throw out there, the more stuff I'll get back. I'm gonna talk about like my tinfoil hat stuff in a minute of why that's not gonna work in the next 10 years, but it doesn't really work now, okay? Throwing garbage out there is a problem. You gotta look at the bigger picture. Another thing too, this is like, when I was doing more SEO, I used to sit in bed at night and think, what am I doing for this universe? My job is literally spamming the internet. I am providing no value to humanity. I have birthed these terrible children who will eventually go to college from this money, and that is it. And now I look at it, I'm like, okay, I'm helping to create a better internet now, right? We're striving to create better content. We're putting writers to work at fair pay, right? And then I serve a service to the buyers by helping them create better content to make the internet better. And in a lot of ways, like, there are going to be outside forces that force us as a group to create better content. But also, man, don't you want to just, like, when all things are said and done, look back and be like, oh, God, that wasn't shitty. I did some cool stuff there. As a buyer, right? You're kind of the creative driving force if you're the buyer for hiring the creative and the overall vision. And the other thing is bad content simply isn't sustainable. Panda's already proven Google has already told you they do not like your bad content. Now all of the major publishers shutting down outside contributions are also sending that signal. AI and machine learning is quickly adapting to be able to spot putrid content. There's a ticking time bomb on this entire concept, and it's not going to work for long, okay? So you're either going to make the change because you want to, and you're going to grit and bear it and say, okay, I guess we have to pay more and do better stuff. You're going to be forced to do it, okay? And as an SEO that's lived through pandas and penguins and, bannings and all of that, like, I've seen it. It's going to come down. Don't think it's going to happen. I don't care. It's going to happen. And so this is my tinfoil hat thing. I see the internet like this, right? Internet came into place, and we had this beautiful thing where we had more knowledge than we've ever had access to before as a group of people. And so what a wonderful thing to have all of this information. But what's happened is there's too much information now. We don't know what real news is. We don't know what fake news is. People don't talk. They talk in emojis, right? Like, Selfies is the worst cancer to ever befall humanity. Listen, I go to the beach and I spend so much time just watching people take pictures of themselves at the ocean. I'm like, you're at the goddamn beach. Like, what are you doing? So, right? So it's become this place where we don't even know. There's just too much information. We're soaked in it. It's too much. So I theorize that we're going to see a contraction. And we've already seen it. Things are going to start to contract in the internet space. Newspapers, as an example, didn't know what to do with this internet thing when it came out. So what do? We'll just give away all of our content. And that will be good because people will come and buy newspapers. That didn't work out. And so what are they doing now? Subscription services. I'm not giving away our content anymore. Okay? Blockchain technology is going to make it, like the whole thing with blockchain technology, Bitcoin, all of that, none of the stuff you hear now is important. What's important about it is going to decentralize the web. People are going to build systems where you will literally go a place and pay an amount of money to get just the content you want. Netflix, think Amazon. We are starting to create these tribal units on the internet where we are willing to go and spend time in little tiny pockets and get exactly what we want for content, and the content is hidden. All right? And if you're a marketer, if you're a business owner, if you're creative, you've got to start looking at what's happening. And we're gonna have an all-out war because the Google and the Facebooks, which are centralized systems, do not want this to happen, right? But there's a lot of money going into the decentralized space now. And so my theory is we're going to see a contraction of information. We're going to see more control over information. We're going to see subscription models start to pop up. We're already seeing the old advertising models die and decay. And that's going to mean premiums for content, period. Okay? It's going to mean people are going to be willing to pay you a premium for content. Your job as a marketer is going to mean creating premium content that gets people to go to a certain place and do a certain thing and not just flooding everything. The other thing to remember too, with Google specifically, Google does not want you to rank for anything if you are a commercial company. Okay? That's a reality. Their business model runs on ads. If you're not paying them for advertising, they do not want you to get traffic. And so if you're in the travel space, 12 years ago, your SERPs looked like blue links. You go to the travel space now and try to book a hotel. What's the first thing you see? There's a booking engine. There's not even ads. There's a fucking booking engine. Credit cards. You can apply for credit cards right. Google will eat your space if they want to. Okay? They're doing it in the job space now, right? So, yeah, I can search directly for jobs from Google. So when you're creating content, who does Google need, and they need them to thrive? Anybody? Google needs one thing in order to thrive. So they need that. But, I mean, that's not what their product, what's their product based on? They need information. They need publishers. Information from publishers. So if you go in any space right now, you'll see publishers on the top two things over commercial almost 100% of the time. Me and Lauren was talking about it. Like, they're pushing publishers to the top. Why? Publishers aren't commercial rivals. The information can be trusted. They're not commercial rivals. So if you're an advertiser, you need to think like a publisher. Publishers don't create shitty content. Okay? And so this is the way things are moving. Facebook's not going to let you, they're not going to use news the way they used to, right? So you got to get outside of that. Like, there are so many changes happening. You need to adapt quickly. It's not a scary thing. It's an exciting thing. It's time to get creative, time to think big. If you own a marketing company, it's about client education. Educating the clients on why this is important. If you're a creative, it's also about client education, but it's also about willing to invest in yourself to be able to do the things that you want to do. Do not wait for somebody to come to you and be like, hey, we'd like you to collaborate with XYZ. No. Invest in yourself. That time you were going to spend writing for 5 sites for free, do something big. Okay? And if you own your own business, take all of these things into consideration. You need to be completely conscious of where Google as a public company is headed as a business, and you need to pivot your business in a way that is Google-proof and future-proof, right? The internet exists because of content, great content. That rule will always be true, no matter what happens. So if you create great content, doesn't matter. If it's Facebook, AOL, walled garden, decentralized system, doesn't matter. You'll be fine, okay? And that's it.
All right. Dave, do you have time for just a few questions? You have time for a few questions?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
I'm not going anywhere.
So you talked about blockchain and how it's going to impact us. I'm invested in it. I kind of want to see where else you think that blockchain technology is going. So I didn't quite understand what you were explaining. So could you explain it one more time, maybe more layman's terms?
Yeah. So if for anybody that just heard people talk about blockchain technology, it's not that crazy of a concept. All it is a totally transparent method for receiving and sending information, right? But that's totally secure. So as an example, as a small business today, if I wanted to pay you, I need to either give you cash or credit card or bank wire, right? There is a financial institution in charge of that who then tells us what's going on. With the blockchain, I take whatever I'm paying you with, I send it to you, and you receive it in this block, and there's a transaction that shows this person received it, this person sent it, and it's completely public, okay? Now, there are blockchain projects that have things like smart contracts in play. And so imagine you're a writer, and you take Square, some kind of payment model. So when you run your credit card, you're paying 2% fees or 1%, whatever you're paying for actually getting the money. You're signing a contract somewhere, and your IP contract, you're getting everything settled. You have like 5 or 6 motions, and you might not get your money for 3 days. With blockchains and smart contracts, I can in the smart contract say, okay, when we do this deal, I own IP rights, I do whatever. The buyer sends the money, that smart contract locks within the blockchain. There's a public record of it now, and I get the money right away for maybe a 10-cent fee, right? Now, how that affects content, right? So people are building blockchains around decentralized systems around content. So there's projects like Tron, which is garbage. It's like there's a lot of bad things out there right now. The whole market's going to change. We're in the pre-bubble stage of blockchain stuff. But imagine building a system where if I'm a content producer, right, I can go and I can latch on to this system. I can create great content, and you're going to go ahead and provide for me this user base that has all the same kind of money that can go ahead and sign up for my subscription model right away, and I can get paid instantly for it. Right? So they've built all the hardware to allow you to basically build your own Netflix on top of the model. Right? Because they already have the user base, people paying all the same kind of money for something with all the payment stuff that needs to happen, and you can build directly on top of that to actually build these little portals of content. So now what's happened, right? It's a bunch of little portals of content rather than, well, if I want to be seen, I guess I got to be on Medium, right? And so that's the decentralization of what's going to happen. I don't have to go through banks anymore. I don't have to do any of that.
So you're a firm believer in it?
Believer in the concept.
Yeah, in the concept.
Yeah. I believe there's going to be all kinds of ruckus that's going to happen over the next 2 years. But I always tell people like this. The dot-com bubble destroyed the dot-com space, except Amazon, eBay, Google came out of it. That's what's going to happen. So you're going to see wreckage and insanity, but the core concept behind it, it's game changer. For people like us, for creatives, for people doing things where I've got to do 8 motions to get a contract done, and I got to wait 3 days to get money, right? Or if I'm a creative and I got to set up my own blog, and I got to go get Stripe integrated into my WordPress and da-da-da-da-da, to just be like, no, I'm just going to create content and dump it onto this system. Yeah. So.
I have a question, loud. Right now, for example, we're in the legal space. We are getting outranked by Avvo, FindLaw, Yelp. Not in every city, but we're getting outranked. With AI coming into play, I feel like there's an opportunity for business owners to actually outrank larger directories because they're not an actual business.
Yeah.
Do you have any input on that?
Yes. I actually do work with a pretty large legal company, and they're spending $500,000 in 6 months on really high quality content. So, yeah, it's the space you're going to have to spend money to get what you want to get done. Now, they're going after everything. I don't know if you guys are geocentric to what you're looking at, but the game plan with anything that's informational based business is going after rich snippets and looking at stuff where like the queries where people are asking questions. Legal spaces, that's the game, right? Are people creating? I mean, people are searching by questions. You need to answer those questions, and you need to answer them completely. And so creating content around that, and then this is a KPI question. Like, you know how much somebody coming to your site for immigration law or whatever it is, DUI case, is worth. You need to figure out how much you're going to spend on content based on that.
Got a question for you. I'm not an IT or SEO guy, but I have noticed my website, because I'm on business, hasn't been operating properly through Google, but Firefox it does. And what do you mean by Google proof? How do I take advantage of that?
So you're talking about it doesn't through Chrome?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah, but
yeah.
not on Google. It shows up kind of not in the platform.
Yeah, so that's probably going to be something where you need to get a developer involved to actually just run some tests on why it's not rendering in Chrome properly. When I talk about Google proofing a business, I mean if Google took me out of the index today, how do I make money, right? Can I make money? Right? If Google took TripAdvisor out of the index today, Google would be hurt more than TripAdvisor would, probably. Right? TripAdvisor would feel a pain, but like TripAdvisor has a bunch of users. Google needs TripAdvisor because they have the best content on the web for travel. So you need to either create yourself. I think businesses need to create themselves in a way they become indispensable to Google. You're not indispensable to Google if you're just an e-commerce shop with no content about the stuff you're selling. They've got a bunch of your competitors already, and furthermore, they want you in Google Shopping, so you'll pay for clicks. So there's no value for you to be in their index.
Thank you.
I was just curious to get some insights from you in regards to evaluating a starting wage for a writer. Because some writers come in with educational backgrounds, like master's degrees. Other writers come in with more hardcore experience. I just get some insights from you on that one.
Yeah. So if you're hiring internally, it's a pretty straight question because you just look at salary guides to help you guide you. But the way that we manage it internally, we let writers. Okay, so we have campaigns that come in. When you come in as a writer, there might be a 5 cent a word campaign. That's what we kind of start everybody at. Because I don't know I don't care what you've told me about your master's degree and all this stuff. I have no idea what you produce, right? You sent me a sample. I don't know who wrote that sample. So we have them come in, start on that stuff. And then what happens in our system is you get offered work, and you can decline it or accept it. Furthermore, as we get specialty projects, we'll put it out there to the community and say, hey, we have a specialty project that pays this amount. Do you want it? We base that based on scoring, right? So yeah, like when we're paying premiums for content, I've vetted those people because to work for CopyPress, you need to take a practical exam, a written exam. You need to have written for us to get higher pay. They've vetted through the whole process, right? I mean, that's the way I am about everything, though. Like when I'm hiring a new employee, I really don't care what your resume says or anything else. I'll find out in the first 90 days whether you can hold water, and then you're gone if not. It sounds brutal. It's not really brutal. That's the best for everybody. But that's how we evaluate. We evaluate writers based on performance. And I get it. Look, if you're an awesome writer that writes for $1 a word, and you're coming, you're like, I don't want to write in your system for 5 cents to prove myself. Yes, do that. Don't write for me. That's fine, because our system is different than others. You shouldn't have to prove yourself. That's just, how it goes for us anyway. Because again, we walk that line. We have to be, I'm pro writers making more money. I also am on the other side trying to sell people on why writers should make more money.
I got a quick question. I'm not sure if this is on. But as a publisher in the a space where most of my traffic is organic, I find kind of a dilemma of Google is focusing a lot on in-depth content and long-form content, but at the same time, consumers who are mainly reading my website have this shorter attention spans than usual. So they're coming to the page and bouncing quicker if they see too long of content. So I'm trying to find a balance between keeping people engaged long enough to stay on it. And
so that's a formatting thing. You know what I mean? Like people like pretty pictures, right? So you need to make sure you have images, that you have bullet points for scannability of the content as well. I agree with you. If you just have huge blocks of text, you're going to lose people. But I think about the perfect example of that kind of content is when you go to like PC Mag or something, and there's reviews of like a laptop. So there's a lot of scannability, like the good, the bad, the this, the that. That will help create some stickiness. Imagery definitely helps create stickiness, and I think that's why learning to do photography, even small amounts of photography, are important. Take your own images when you're doing that kind of stuff. I also think video can help with that, like shooting a video and having it at the top of the page, right? Because people will stick longer. Just creating engagement points where people will stick around, because you need the content as well. And then you can do things with your content, like have that bar where you click it and the rest of the stuff scrolls out. And, I think that's a formatting design, adding ancillary components to your content and other media, digital media pieces will help with stickiness. This guy has a question, Clayton.
I have a question too. So I was going to ask. So you said to go ahead and, if you're a content marketer, to start your blog today. So if I were to go start my blog today, I know there's a lot of other blogs out there about content marketing, and you're not going to compete with someone like HubSpot, who puts out a lot of good information. Do you think it's more valuable to start a blog about another topic that you're passionate about? I don't know, like true crime or animals.
If you're a writer, yes. If you're a content marketing professional, maybe no. But like HubSpot's content sucks in my opinion, right? This is on video, right? And so, right, like there's this, again, in the marketing space, I was talking to somebody last night, like the content that's out there is so generic and lame, and like 10 ways to write headlines, and there's so many new ways to approach that concept in even the marketing space. That's the lens that we should be looking at stuff. And then, once you find your niche, don't just find the niche, find new ways to look at content and how we approach it. Because, again, the stuff that we've been almost trained to think of as web copy is just terrible in general. And so I think, yes, if you're a writer, what I would not say is, as a writer, go out, start a professional writing blog today. That's not what I mean by niche. No, you do something else. You do something besides writing. I guarantee it. Or you're boring, and that's all you do. But, like, for me, I could go write a blog today about my terrible children, and like, hey, that's my blog, right? I can't take pictures of that because they're always naked and fighting. But, like, that could be what I write about.
Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to wear a tinfoil hat with you, too. And we're also a web design firm, and we see this thing just skyrocketing with Google pushing their AMP pages. Do you believe that's their way to make sure everything stays centralized?
It was, but it kind of blew up in their face. People aren't playing by their games anymore.
Right.
And so they kind of tricked everybody into doing it, and then a bunch of developers were like, no, right? So absolutely they did it to force what they wanted to happen, because what they started to do is you were keeping it on AMP URLs, right? It stole all your traffic. Google loves to steal people's traffic. And they love, like, right? If I go search a Miami Heat score right now, I get it right on the front page. They're not out doing scores. They're stealing it from somebody. And then what do they want you to do? Not steal content from people, or they'll de-index you. They're funny. So generally speaking, you know what I mean? Like, don't use Google services if you're a web publisher on your site. I mean, Google Analytics is fine because it's free and it's awesome. But if you're going to, don't give them your traffic. So there's enough people out there that have been destroyed by them to know, like, that's not a good play anymore.
Do you think that they're going to still corrupt the system with paywalls? Because I'm assuming if you want yourself indexed, you can't hide it from them. So they're going to I don't think they're going to be able to, man. They're going to, like, again, the people putting up the paywalls are the people they need. They're in a conundrum now, because the publishers are who they need.
And so we won't index you if you have a paywall. Great. So we won't put up the paywall and just go out of business then, right? Like, so to give or take, Google's going to lose on that one. Because what it's going to become, just a bunch of ads at that point in time. And that, I mean, and everybody says, yeah, just a bunch of ads. I'm not using Google if it's just a bunch of ads. I'm not getting any information then.
My question is, are you ending the links for the SEO purpose? Or are you always use some social media to promote sharing your content?
We do a lot of content placement where we work with publishers. We also use social media. It depends on, again, KPIs. What are we trying to get done for this campaign? Is it something that we're trying to get a ton of noise out about? We'll produce social media campaigns around content. But depending on that's a good question, because depending on how you're going to try to get the content out, the content needs to be created in certain ways, right? There's certain things that won't work on a Reddit or a Pinterest or this. They're not all interchangeable, right? So,
in the travel industry, there used to be, or even right now, there's thousands of property management, vacation rental companies that used to be on the first page of search results that have been pushed out by the Expedia, HomeAway, VRBO. And if you don't list your units with them, you disappear. And of course, listing your units with them, you give them complete control over who's renting. They take the communication out. So one of my main clients right now, we're still holding on to the first page, but I can see where it's just getting worse and worse. You talk about the travel industry. What do you see happening with that? And I know Google is actually doing bookings now too.
Yeah, I mean, travel space is done in general, just because not only does Google own the travel space, they own a piece of HomeAway. Right? Google Ventures owns a piece of HomeAway. So Google also owns the technology that all the ticketing systems for the airlines in the US runs on. There's a lot of stuff that people don't understand how big of a monopoly Google has in the travel space. It's illegal, and nobody understands the technology behind it. So, yeah, I mean, what I would do if I was running that type of setup is I would be like, all right, we are just going to create amazing content, pictures, images. We are going to flood. We're not going to be Google-centric. We're going to flood social media with what we do. Right? Again, that decentralized concept of how do we get traffic. If Google's going to eventually push us and push us and push us, how do we attack that? The other thing I would do too, though, is if you can become the most informative piece, right? So if these properties in specific places, you become the most informative piece of content and best piece of content on that place, you might have a shot of holding on, right? But that's going to take an investment of, how do we have the best pictures, right? How do we have, we're doing interviews with local restaurants and owners, and we're doing this, you got to think like a publisher. And so that might not coincide with budget on that level, There's still TripAdvisor. Right, yeah, I mean, exactly.
So, in the legal space, we got, just like we talked about, Avvo, Yelp, Justia. There's a lot of different directories or, I guess, other places people can go to. Does Google want to put that number one, number two, or do they want to put actually what's more relevant, which is like a local law firm?
They definitely want a local law firm. They don't like any directories, right?
It takes away money from them.
Yep. Directory business, they see that they should be the only one in that space if you're just listing stuff out, right? So they're going to want to put a local law firm up first, and then they're going to want to, more importantly than that, put informational sites for legal terms up super high. So it's why you'll see in certain, legal blogs in certain niches rank really high for some of those more generic terms, rather than sites that are going to generate leads off of them.
So how do you outrank a Yelp or an Avvo or Justia?
You create what that 10x concept on content, on specific terms, on specific concepts, right? So we are going to be the resource on DUI, which means we might have to create 2,000 pages of really awesome content on just DUI, where on every page I answer anything, any concept of what might be usable information on that topic. You'd have to become the resource of it. And then you have to go and build backlinks to it, because that's, backlinks are the core of Google, right? And so the way I always put it for people is Google was built on backlinks. Google has the best chocolate chip cookie recipe. And if you have the best chocolate chip cookie recipe, you don't go changing the recipe just because, right? Remember what happened with New Coke? Like, it's terrible. We go back to old Coke. So Google, for all of their nonsense, backlinks are still the core of the web. So you have great copy will get you backlinks, and we have case studies of companies that have just done great copy without links and have gone crazy. But the amount of content that takes is insane.